Hello and welcome to a new episode of Ranking Every Level on the Demons List. This is episode 4. If you'd like to see the other episodes, they will be in a playlist in the description. I highly recommend watching the entirety of the series before this one. The rules are explained more in depth in part 1 and partially in part 2, so definitely go and watch the rest of the series if you want the rules, but for a basic rundown, I am just going to go through the entirety of the Demons List 10 levels at a time. There is 10 levels per video, and anytime a level gets placed above the levels I've already reviewed, I will review them as extra levels at the end of each episode. As it just so happens, there actually is a bonus level, but we're going to start with it at the beginning, and that bonus level is COVID-19. Okay, jokes aside, I caught COVID a couple weeks ago, and so part 3, my voice kind of sounds a little bit off, but that's why. However, I have good news, I am no longer affected by COVID-19. Of course, this doesn't change anything on your guys' end and on the content creation and consumption end of things. I just felt like I'd mention that this level exists, and I rank COVID-19 a 1 out of 10. But yeah, no, all memes and all jokes aside, I got an extreme outpouring of support when I made the announcement on my community tab, and I genuinely do appreciate it. You guys are the fucking best. I don't deserve any of the support I have, but I have it, and I couldn't be any more grateful, so thank you so much for being there for me and supporting me. I really appreciate it. Anyway, sappy bullshit aside, let's get to the actual list, which is probably what you came here for. First, we have Lotus Flower, and Lotus Flower is a level that's really hard for me to review. See, the thing about Lotus Flower and what makes it so special is that this is probably the hardest rated duel level in the game. About half the level is duel, and this is probably one of the hardest duels on the list. The gameplay in this level is very Kermal-esque, with a god-tier level of music sync, but gameplay that looks really frustrating, not because it's bad, but because of how unconventional and strange it is. If I could compare the second half, the duel specifically, to anything, it kinda looks like the ending to Falling Up. As I mentioned before, this level has an amazing level of music sync, and it's kinda mind-blowing how the duel syncs so well to the song. And yeah, the level's actually pretty cool. Except there's a problem. See, to present this review in the best light and the way I see this level, I've been intentionally omitting the beginning of the level, even though you've seen it in the background footage. I've intentionally chose not to talk about the beginning of the level up until now, and now I think we need to talk about it. The beginning of Lotus Flower is one of the most boring things I've ever seen. It's still comparable to Kermal gameplay. It does have a lot of those unconventional and strange timings, and it even has its own gimmick. However, it relies way too much on this gimmick, and it gets stale probably around 10 to 15% into the level. What that gimmick is basically there are these platforms that constantly shrink and grow in size, and so you have to predict where the platform will be so you know if you have to dodge it or land on it. That's really it. It's just, it's boring. Now, this problem wouldn't be so bad if it wasn't for the fact that this entire section, the part I'm critiquing here, lasts until 54%. The really unique and interesting duel doesn't start until 54%, meaning for over half of the level, it's a boring mess. Not helping this level's case is that the decoration is extremely boring, to the point where I'm shocked this is considered rate-worthy by the current rate standards. I do want to give the verifier a lot of credit, though, because this level was almost significantly worse. This level actually used to be impossible. And I don't mean that in ILL sense of like, oh, well, it's a hard level that they nerfed. I mean this was made with the intent of getting verified, but it used to be so difficult that the creator of the level said it was easily harder than Slaughterhouse. And in the showcase video, they didn't even bother to bot it. They just made a really bad no-clip, and it's kind of funny. Now, normally I wouldn't bring stuff like that up in a review, however, it's relevant here because the verifier did an extremely good job nerfing and balancing this level to be fun. And I have heard people say it's fun if you get consistent at the beginning and you're good at duels like this. I know those are two oddly specific requirements, but I mean, that happens a lot with list demons. I mean, if you're good at Slaughterhouse-style wave gameplay, you're probably going to enjoy Slaughterhouse and so on. But the point is, people enjoy Lotus Flower, and that's a good thing. They could have easily just forced someone to throw themselves at the impossible version until they beat it, and then you'd have a really terrible top 1. But instead, the level was nerfed so that it could be fun, and I'm gonna take that into account with my score, because that's definitely something to be admired. I gotta mention, like, I know I mentioned it before, but I just wish this level would get redecorated. It looks fine, but, like, it's just so plain. The block decoration is mediocre at best, and there's literally no background. It is just a solid black background, and the level is lacking in air deco. This is so plain and boring. I just wish there was more. I will say this, though, at least the gameplay is creative enough to hold the level up on its own. I do think if this level got redecorated and it ended up looking better, I would definitely make my score higher. But as it stands, I'm going to give Lotus Flower a 4 out of 10. So before we get to our next review, I want to give the next level an eye strain warning. If you have a hard time looking at harsh, conflicting, bright colors, don't look at the screen for the next review. This was genuinely hard to look at. Like, I'm recording this in editing, not in recording, and I had to, like, struggle to edit this part because it was hurting my eyes. So next up we have Esfera, and Esfera is actually pretty cool at first. See, the decoration in this level is really, really cool, and the gameplay is really, really fun to watch. This level actually kind of reminds me of Digital Descent in a lot of ways. I think the problem with Esfera is that it is way too long. When I was watching a video of this level on YouTube, I got to around 30% in the level, and then I realized I was an entire 1.5 minutes into the video, which means that 30% of this level is the length of a full level. Now, that wouldn't be so bad if the level did anything special to warrant that length. I mean, I gave Zodiac a 10 out of 10. The problem is that this level feels the same throughout, and while that's fine at first, when you get to like 30 to 50% into the level, it just starts to feel mundane, because you've been staring at the same thing for so long. The other problem with this level actually comes from the exact opposite problem. The parts in this level that are not mundane and boring, I don't want to look at because they hurt my eyes. There's an entire section, it's 14 to 17%. Keep in mind this level's super long, so that's way more of the level that it sounds like. But there's an entire section from 14 to 17 that I just straight up cannot look at. The sad part is, it took me forever to figure out why I don't like this part. They take the colors and they give them these really harsh, bright tones using glow, which in and of itself probably wouldn't be so bad if it wasn't for the fact that the yellows and purples here clash really, really bad. I legitimately think that an eye strain warning should be given for any showcase of this level. There are other parts of the level that also hurt my eyes in a similar way, however, this is the part I'm using as an example because it's probably the worst. And the level kind of goes back and forth between eye strain and plain and boring. I know that I have to edit this later, and I'm gonna do future me a favor and just cut my review here and shut up. But yeah, due to the overwhelmingly long length of this level, which is not warranted whatsoever, on top of the harsh eye strain visuals, I'm gonna rank this level a 5 out of 10. I actually think that's kind of high despite those issues, not gonna lie, and that's mainly because this level does remind me of Digital Descent, and it does manage to capture a lot of the magic that Digital Descent captured for me. I do really like the gameplay and the song usage in this level. I just don't like the level. So yeah, I'm gonna give it a 5 out of 10. Next up we have Super Hate Me World. Super Hate Me World is a very bizarre level to review here, and I'm gonna have to approach this one differently than everything we've talked about on the list so far, because Super Hate Me World is an interesting case. The gameplay is absolute f***ing dog shit. But the bizarre thing about that is I can't really criticize this level for it because it was done on purpose. I have to make a statement here that's gonna affect the rest of the series, and I know what I want that statement to be because I know how to approach it, but it's very controversial. I've said other versions of it at other points in time. However, Super Hate Me World is going to be a case where it actually becomes controversial. If your level's gameplay is bad on purpose, the level is still bad. And therefore, I'm not going to hold back in saying this game has bottom-of-the-barrel, dog-shit gameplay. It is some of the worst gameplay I have ever seen. Not helping is that I don't like the decoration in this level. Don't get me wrong, it's fine, it looks okay for what it's trying to do. I think I'm just sick of Iced Cave Hell levels because they always end up looking the same to me. There are parts in here that literally just look like parts we've seen in the trailers for Grief. I get that this level came first and that criticism should probably levy on Grief and not on Super Hate Me World, and does, but I think when you're derivative, the derivativeness kind of retroactively affects your backlog, so even though this was the level to do it first, it's still irritating. Part of the problem with this level, and what makes me not like it, comes down to the fact that it's hard to take seriously. I had a hard time pinpointing this, and I had a hard time really phrasing this, but I finally figured it out and I know how to explain it. Super Hate Me World is not a level I can take seriously. Due to the fact that this level takes itself so seriously and tries so hard to be edgy, mixed with the terrible level name, Super Hate Me World, this level just kind of comes across as a joke level to me. And it probably is kind of considered a joke level, but no, people look at this like it's some serious, edgy masterpiece. I can make an entire analogy for the level out of the title of the level. Super Hate Me World. Garbage name, makes a lot of people laugh when they hear it because it's hard to take it seriously. How difficult would it have been to rename the level to just Hate Me? If the level was called Hate Me, that would be even just slightly easier to take seriously. The name Super Hate Me World sounds like it would be the name of a shitty Mario creepypasta, not of a Geometry Dash level. Oh, wait a minute. Oh, I see. Okay. There are many other problems like this that I have, like the fact that the level just abuses the shake trigger throughout the whole thing. It feels like every 2 seconds a shake trigger activates. And the sad part is I don't even know if that's a genuine criticism or if that feeds into the whole intentionally bad gameplay thing. At the very least, that is a minor criticism because you can actually turn shake triggers off in the game's settings. Yeah, those are my main complaints, I just don't have that much more to say. It all boils down to the fact that the level tries way too hard to be edgy, is impossible to take seriously, and that it's interchangeable with basically any other Iced Cave Hell level. I'm giving this level a 3 out of 10. Next up we have Fragile, and Fragile is a level that I really don't have that much to say about. The level is inspired by Caloretta, and it literally just feels like Caloretta to me. There really isn't much to say about this because I don't want to spoil my review of Caloretta for later on, and this level is basically going to have the exact same criticisms and compliments as Caloretta. But just know that I really like this level, however I see it as nothing more than derivative to Caloretta despite that. Either way, I can tell there was effort put into this, and there is a certain level of polish that's kinda hard to pull off. I liked the level, I enjoyed watching a completion of it, despite the fact I had never seen it up until now. I think the level's pretty cool. I don't have much more to say. I'm gonna rank this a 7 out of 10. Next up we have Crimson Planet, and I love Crimson Planet. I think this level is really, really cool. I don't really know anything about the gameplay, whether or not it's fun or not. It's kinda hard to tell watching it, and I really don't have any good opinions to go off of because every player seems to give a different opinion. But what I will say is that the level uses the song really well, the decoration is really, really good, and it's a very energetic level, and I really, really like it. I don't have a lot to say about Crimson Planet, it just looks really, really cool. I am shocked not as many people talk about the end screen. The end screen in this level is really cool. I don't know, I wanted to call that out. I love Crimson Planet's end screen. But aside of that, Crimson Planet looks really, really cool. I really like the way the gameplay looks in videos and stuff. Again, I don't know if it's fun to play, but, you know, I like the way the decoration looks. I like the way the song is used. The sync is actually really, really good. Overall, I think this level is way better than it had any right to be. So yeah, I'm gonna rank Crimson Planet a 9 out of 10. So next up we have Calculator Core, and I love Calculator Core, like, a lot. This level is so cool. A lot of what I say about Firework actually applies here, because this level reminds me of Firework a lot. It's an XL Extreme with a grayscale color scheme that uses an amazing song. It goes with the song really well. The sync is like S tier. This level syncs with the song really, really well. Funnily enough, for being such a long song, it uses the entirety of the song, which kind of blew my mind, I'm not gonna lie. This level is actually very, very similar to Firework. You could compare the two, and you'd understand why I see so many similarities. Now, I'm not saying they're derivative of each other. I'm not even saying they're inspired by each other, or taking inspiration from each other, or anything like that. I'm more so just saying I like Calculator Core for the same reasons I like Firework, and both the levels remind me of each other. I'm not gonna lie, a lot of why I love this level is that I f***ing love the song in the level, and that alone doesn't usually make a level good, but what makes it so good is that this level complements the song really, really well, and that makes me like this level even more, because it's a song I love, and that song I love is being polished with a really good level, and I think that's really, really cool. However, that is where the compliments end. Calculator Core has a massive, and I mean massive, problem that we can't overlook. Calculator Core has an extremely large object count, clocking in at 345,073 objects. Now, don't get me wrong, this object count can be partially justified considering the level uses the entirety of its song, and that means the level is ridiculously long, and having a long level means more objects, naturally. But the problem is that this level still managed to be really, really dense in objects. I heard someone tell me at one point that Calculator Core was the second most object-heavy level on the list, behind Storming Summit. Just throwing this in as some post-edit corrections, this was my source, this tweet. I found it through this Woolsey video, and as it turns out, I was wrong. It is not number 2, it is number 4. The object counts that are higher than Calculator Core are Black Flag, Freedom 08, and Storming Summit. My point still stands, and this doesn't change anything in my review. I just want to be transparent because I don't want to spread misinformation. And without getting into Storming Summit right now, because naturally we're going to review it in a future episode, Storming Summit has every right to have a high object count, considering it is a pixel art level themed around the game Celeste. So naturally it's going to have a lot of objects. Calculator Core is just a black and white traditional GD level, so being the second most object-heavy level on the list, it's kinda strange. For reference, we're gonna do what we've been doing for most of this review, and we're gonna compare Calculator Core to Firework. So don't get me wrong, Calculator Core is a full minute longer than Firework, but with that being said, Calculator Core has 345,000 objects, Firework only has 165,000. And yet when you look at videos, Firework looks like it has more objects, yet it's 200,000 less objects. I cannot justify the object count being this high, and it shows, because literally the only high detail showcase I could find on YouTube was made by Just a GD Player. I could not find a single showcase that showed the full detail off. Just a GD Player is the only showcase channel I found that showcased Calculator Core in full quality. Originally, I was gonna say this level is a very high 10, but I can't justify that. I have to give this level a 9, purely because the object count is so high. I can't justify that. 9 is still very high, but I definitely think this level could have benefited from some optimization. Next up we have Cold Sweat. Cold Sweat is one of those levels where it's really bad at some things, but it excels at other things. This level, you need to be looking for a specific niche to get anything out of this level. Cold Sweat was an extremely popular level in 2020, but I feel a lot of its popularity has died down in recent years. Not really sure why, because the level is pretty cool, but like I said, you need to go into this level wanting a specific thing out of a level. Like, if you're just looking for a traditional GD level or a traditional list demon, you're probably not going to get anything out of this. Cold Sweat back then, and hell, even now, is an extremely creative take on memory in Geometry Dash. It starts off being a timing level, and the farther in you get, the more difficult the memory gets. Then, of course, when you get to the climax of the song, the level switches completely from memory to raw skill wave gameplay, and it ends up making this part feel really out of place, yet really, really tense. After that bit of raw skill, it ends up being one of the hardest parts of the level, not in terms of, like, gameplay and skill, but in terms of memory. This part is nearly unsight readable, and that makes the nerve control here insane. Obviously, as I've said before, take any statements on gameplay with a slight grain of salt. I'm not good enough to play these levels. Unfortunately, that's kind of where my compliments for Cold Sweat end. I'm not very fond of Cold Sweat. I've never really liked this level. As creative and unique and as well put together as this level is, there's a reason people only talk about the wave part and occasionally the UFO part right before it. Some of the sections in this level are just so forgettable to me. Like, every time I watch this, I feel like I've never seen the first cube before, even though I have. Unfortunately, I feel like a lot of people only know Cold Sweat because of the wave part, and that sucks, because this level is really good and really well put together, but I also kind of see where people are coming from on that. I don't know, I'm very mixed, because on one hand I respect this level a lot for its creativity and all the stuff it puts forward, but on the other hand, so much of this level is just forgettable to me. Because of that, I think I'm going to rank Cold Sweat a 7 out of 10. So next up we have Cognition. As I've hinted at several times before this in all of the other Ranking the Demons List videos, I personally think Cognition is the best use of a song on the Demons List. So unfortunately, I can't play Cognition's song in this review because copyright, and this is probably the level that's hurt by this the most in this series. I'm going to do my best to explain what I'm talking about. After this video is done, just go and watch a video of Cognition being completed, and you will immediately understand what I mean. So not only is Cognition's song just really, really good by itself, but this level does a really good job at complementing it really well. The sync is god tier. The level manages to be just claustrophobic enough to fit the energy of the song, and one compliment I have to give this level is that on top of the gameplay syncing, the speed of the level syncs really well. This is actually kind of a thing that Kiyuki failed at, and this is what I was referring to when I was talking about Kiyuki's speed changes. Cognition does this beautifully, where if the song is super slow paced, like at the very beginning where the guy is talking over the instrumental as it's slowed down and not very climactic, the level's at half speed and the timings are really, really tight. But on the super fast-paced, intense parts of the song towards the middle, the player's moving at like 4 times speed, but the timings are loose enough to where that's actually really fun to do, and it makes it flow really well. And mind you, when I'm saying loose timings, this is still an extreme. I'm not saying it's easy. They're just loose in the sense of these timings are fun to play, but they still feel intense. Like, I seriously cannot praise this enough. The fact that the level is the exact speed of the song for every moment just blows my mind. There's never a moment where the level just slows down and throws a tight timing at you. It always corresponds with the song in a way that's really, really cool. Stepping away from the sync and just talking about the gameplay for a moment, I love that this level changes game modes as often as it does. See, the thing about Cognition's song, very similar to what I said about Zodiac, is not in a bad way. The song is still really good, but when you break it down, the melody is a bit repetitive, so it is hard to build gameplay that also doesn't feel repetitive. The way Cognition avoids being repetitive with his gameplay is instead of having the gameplay be the thing that's repetitive, it's the sheer amount of gameplay changes. Anytime you would need a repetitive gimmick in the level, they just change the game mode. This allows the gameplay itself to be a lot more freeform and not conform as much to the song while still syncing really, really well. You'll have one part of the song that's cube gameplay with timings, and then another part of the song that sounds identical, but it's a duel. And it still manages to work because of the way it was executed. The one criticism I could see levied at Cognition, honestly, is the decoration. The decoration isn't the most complicated thing in the world. It's really, really simple. However, I'm gonna say that that's a good thing for 2 reasons. The first reason I'm okay with the decoration being so simple is because, again, the focus is on the sync here. The decoration isn't the forefront, and the decoration is still good, it's just simple. The other reason I like the decoration being so simple is because the object count is below 80,000. The object count clocks in at 66,616. There's a lot of 6s there, huh? Shocked this isn't a hell level. Jokes aside, I'm just shocked I don't see people praising this more. The fact that Cognition is under the unmodified object count is really cool to me. That also means it's extremely optimized and anyone could play this in the full detail. At this point, I feel like I've gone on about Cognition enough, but just know that I have so many more things I could praise this level for. I love Cognition so much, and I'm ranking it a 10 out of 10. So next up we have Cosmic Cyclone, and I love Cosmic Cyclone. This level is basically everything I wanted Sonic Wave Infinity to be. Take Sonic Wave Infinity and just strip it of all of its problems, and this is the level you get. You get a level that looks just as breathtaking, if not more, and despite that has way less cluttered and way better looking block design. Take any of my praises towards Sonic Wave Infinity and apply them here, and you'll understand that this level is just a better Sonic Wave Infinity. I just want to clarify, too, that I get that my review of Sonic Wave Infinity was negative. I'm not saying the entirety of my Sonic Wave Infinity review applies here. I'm saying the positive things I said about Sonic Wave Infinity applies to Cosmic Cyclone. I just want to clear that up because I'm editing this right now, and I don't think I made that very clear, so I just wanted to clarify that at the end here. My only complaint with this level is something I vowed in a previous episode would not lower score, and that thing is the remix that all of the YouTubers who complete this level use to avoid copyright. I think it sounds horrible. It's straight up just less notes, wrong notes, less intensity. I think the remix ruins the level. Now, obviously, that doesn't lower score for me. I'm more so just saying, if you're gonna watch a completion of Cosmic Cyclone, make sure it has the original song, because it's better. Also, this might be the best usage of Kalak's lightning effect. I'm just throwing that out there. Yeah, no, with all of that being said, I really like this level. I'm giving it a 10 out of 10. So next up we have Lucid Nightmares, and I really like Lucid Nightmares. It uses the song really well, the decoration is really good, the gameplay syncs pretty well to the song. Overall, it's just a really fun level. I am going to do something I don't normally do, though, and I am going to take community opinions into account here. Universally, across everyone I've seen who's completed this level, they say that the gameplay sucks, and they especially specify the transitions are not good. So I am going to take that into account, but I do really like Lucid Nightmares. I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10. And with that, we have finished part 4 of ranking the entire Demons list. Not gonna lie, this episode was really difficult to make. Not because I wasn't interested, but because the levels were just kinda difficult to review this time around. There was never really an in-between. It was either the reviews were really long and I had a lot to say, or the reviews were really short because there wasn't much to say at all. And that's not necessarily bad, I just had a hard time recording this one. I'm sure that on the viewer end, this is fine, however, it just goes to show that the farther down we go on the Demons list, the more oddly either forgettable or derivative levels get. And because of that, whenever there's a level that's not derivative, the review of said level feels really long in comparison to the rest of them. And I feel like this trend is not going to die throughout the rest of the series. That being said, this was the episode I was most excited to make, mainly because I really just wanted to review Cognition. Cognition is a level that I really like, and I knew from the beginning of this series that I would eventually get to talk about it, and I've been really excited ever since. Not to say the other levels aren't worth talking about, I just really was excited to talk about Cognition, and so this was a really good episode for me just on that basis alone. Either way, there will be a playlist down in the description that contains the rest of the series in case you haven't seen the rest of it and you'd like to catch up. If you enjoyed this video, I'd really appreciate it if you could like and subscribe and interact in the comment section and all the usual interaction reminder stuff. I try my best to read every single comment I get, so yeah, I will most likely respond to you if you have like a question or something like that. Either way, I hope you have a fantastic day, and thank you so much for watching.